Commander Kyung-min sat in his chair on the bridge of the Soul's Pride. The ship was small compared to the big warships back on Earth, but it was his ship. He had been watching the empty space around the Proxima Nebula for 3 months now. Nothing ever happened out here. The stars looked the same every day, and his crew was getting bored. "Sir, I'm getting something weird on the sensors," said Lieutenant Hana from her station. She was young and had joined the crew only 6 months ago. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Kyung-min stood up and walked over to her station. The screen showed dots moving toward their position. Lots of dots. "How many ships are we looking at?" 37, sir. Maybe more. They're big ones, too." Hana's voice was quiet. She had never seen so many ships in one place before. "Are they ours?" Kyung-min already knew the answer, but he had to ask. "No, sir. The computer says they're Veltraxian. They're coming from their space, but they're heading straight for us." Hana looked up at her commander. "Sir, they're crossing the boundary line." Kyung-min felt his stomach drop. The boundary line was sacred. Every species in the galaxy knew where their space ended and someone else's began. You didn't cross that line without asking first. You especially didn't cross it with 37 warships. "Send the standard warning on all channels," he said. His voice was calm, but inside he was worried. The Soul's Pride was just one ship. If these aliens wanted a fight, they would get one. But it wouldn't last very long. Hana pressed some buttons and spoke into her headset. "Unknown ships, this is the Human Defense Fleet. You have entered our space without permission. Turn around, now, or tell us why you're here. You have 60 seconds to respond." On the main screen, the alien ships kept coming. They didn't slow down. They didn't turn around. They acted like they owned the space they were flying through. Kyung-min walked back to his chair and pressed a button. "All crew, this is the commander. We have uninvited guests. Everyone get to battle stations. This is not a drill." Red lights started flashing throughout the ship. The crew ran to their positions. Some looked scared. Others looked excited. Most just looked ready to do their job. "Still no response from the alien ships, sir," Hana reported. "They're getting closer." "What do we know about these Veltraxians?" Kyung-min asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Jinwoo. "They're bug-like creatures, sir. Very aggressive. They've been taking over star systems for the past 10 years. They have good weapons and strong ships." Jinwoo paused. "Sir, there are a lot of them." "I can see that." Kyung-min stared at the screen. The alien ships were getting bigger as they came closer. "Send another warning. Make it clear." Hana nodded and spoke again. "Veltraxian ships, this is Commander Kyung-min of the Human Defense Fleet. You are in violation of galactic law. Leave our space immediately, or we will be forced to stop you." The aliens still didn't answer. On the largest Veltraxian ship, Admiral Vextar looked at the human warning with disgust. The translation came through clearly, but he didn't care what the humans had to say. His species had conquered 17 star systems. What could one small human ship do against his mighty fleet? "Ignore them," he told his crew. "Humans are weak. They talk big, but they run when real fighting starts. We'll take their colony world and show the galaxy that the Veltraxian Empire fears no one." His ship moved forward with the rest of the fleet. The human ship looked tiny compared to his massive warships. This would be over quickly. Back on the Soul's Pride, Kyung-min knew he was running out of time. The alien ships would reach the colony, world of New Busan, in a few hours. 12 million people lived there. They were counting on him to protect them. He pressed another button on his chair. This one was different. It sent a signal that went to every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy at the same time. The message was simple but important. "This is Commander Kyung-min, Soul's Pride, Sector 7. Code Crimson. Uninvited alien fleet has entered human space. They refuse to leave. 12 million civilians at risk. Request immediate help under Terra Doctrine." Terra Doctrine. Every human in space knew what those words meant. It was the rule that said human space was absolutely protected. If someone attacked human territory, every human ship would come to help. No matter how far away they were, no matter what else they were doing. The message traveled through quantum relays faster than light. It reached Earth in seconds. It reached human colonies on the far side of the galaxy just as quickly. On Earth, in the big command center, Admiral Tejo was drinking coffee when the message came in. She was a small woman, but everyone in the Human Defense Fleet knew she was the toughest commander they had. She read the message twice, then stood up. "Code Crimson in Sector 7, she announced to the room. "All available ships, set course for the Proxima Nebula. Maximum speed. Terra Doctrine is now active." She pressed her own button and sent a message. Back to Commander Kyung-min. "Commander, this is Admiral Tejo. Help is coming. Hold your position. Protect those civilians. And remember, the Terra Doctrine rule." Kyung-min smiled when he heard the message. The Terra Doctrine rule was simple. No prisoners, no survivors, no exceptions. Anyone who attacked human space would regret it, if they lived long enough to regret anything. "Sir, the alien ships are almost in weapons range," Jinwoo reported. "Good. Charge all weapons. Raise shields to maximum. Send one final message to those aliens." Hana nodded and opened the channel. "Veltraxian Fleet, this is your final warning. Leave human space now or face the consequences. We will not ask again." The alien ships kept coming. Admiral Vextar laughed when he heard the final warning. "Face the consequences. What can one tiny ship do to us? Attack formation! Prepare to destroy them!" But as his ships got closer to the human vessel, something bothered him. The human ship wasn't running away. It wasn't calling for help. It was just sitting there, waiting, like it wanted to fight. "Sir," his tactical officer said nervously, "maybe we should be more careful. Humans might be stronger than our reports say." "Nonsense," Vextar replied. "Look at their ship. It's tiny. We could crush it with one shot." But deep inside, a small voice told him something was wrong. Humans didn't act like other species. Other species ran when they were outnumbered. Other species tried to negotiate. These humans just sat there and waited for the fight to start. On the Soul's Pride, Kyung-min looked at his crew. They were ready. They knew the odds. They knew they probably wouldn't survive this fight. But they also knew that help was coming. And they knew that every minute they fought would give the people on New Busan more time to escape. "All stations report ready, sir," Jinwoo said. "Then let's show these aliens what happens when you enter human space uninvited," Kyung-min said, quietly. The battle was about to begin. The Veltraxian fleet moved through space like a dark cloud of death. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge and watched the single human ship growing larger on his screen. He still couldn't believe one small vessel dared to challenge his entire fleet. "Sir, we're getting a message from New Busan," his communications officer reported. "The humans are evacuating their colony world." "Let them run," Vextar said with a cruel smile. "We'll catch their transport ships and make examples of them. The galaxy will learn that the Veltraxian Empire takes what it wants." But something nagged at him. The human warship hadn't moved. It just sat there in space, directly in their path. Any sane commander would have run away by now or tried to hide behind an asteroid. This human was either very brave or very stupid. On New Busan, Governor Ji-won ran through the command center giving orders. Alarms were ringing everywhere, and people were rushing to get on evacuation ships. "How many more transports do we need?" she asked her aide. "At least 50, ma'am. It'll take 6 hours to get everyone off the planet." 6 hours? Ji-won looked at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet. They would be here in less than 2 hours. She grabbed her communicator. "Commander, Kyung-min, this is Governor Ji-won. We need more time. Can you give us 6 hours?" There was a pause before Kyung-min's voice came back. "We'll give you whatever time we can, Governor. Get your people out of there." Ji-won knew what that meant. The Soul's Pride would fight until it was destroyed. 1. Ship against 37. The crew would die to save her people. In space, the first Veltraxian ships came within range. They were huge, each one 3 times bigger than the human cruiser. Their weapons glowed as they charged up. "Fire at will," Admiral Vextar ordered. Bright beams of energy shot out from the alien ships. They expected to see the human vessel explode in a ball of fire. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship's shields absorbed the attack like it was nothing. The energy weapons that could destroy a city just made the shields glow brighter for a moment. Then the human ship fired. Back. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space faster than anything Vextar had ever seen. They hit 3 of his destroyers before his crew even realized the humans had weapons that powerful. The alien ships exploded one after another, their hulls torn apart by weapons that shouldn't exist. "What was that?" Vextar screamed. "How do they have such strong weapons?" His tactical officer was staring at his instruments in shock. "Sir, their weapons are cutting through our armor like it's made of paper, and their shields are absorbing our shots like they're toys." Vextar couldn't believe it. His intelligence reports had said humans were weak. They were supposed to be a minor species with basic technology. This was not basic technology. On the Soul's Pride, Commander Kyung-min watched 3 enemy ships die and felt grim satisfaction. "Target the next group. Focus fire on their lead ships." The human weapons fired again. Plasma cannons joined the quantum torpedoes, creating a wall of destruction that tore into the Veltraxian formation. 2 more enemy ships exploded, and a third was badly damaged. "Sir, we're getting a signal," Hana reported excitedly. "It's Captain Minji on the Gangnam Thunder." Kyung-min smiled for the first time since the battle started. "Put her through." "Commander Kyung-min, this is Captain Minji. Sorry we're late to the party. What are your orders?" Kyung-min looked at the tactical screen. The Gangnam Thunder had appeared right behind the alien fleet. The Veltraxians were now caught between 2 human ships. "Eliminate every ship that crossed our boundary," Kyung-min said simply. "No exceptions." "Understood, sir." Beginning attack. "Run now!" The Gangnam Thunder was a destroyer, smaller than the Soul's Pride but faster and more deadly. Captain Minji had positioned her ship perfectly. The Veltraxians were focused on the cruiser in front of them and didn't see the destroyer behind them until it was too late. Minji's ship opened fire with everything it had. The aliens had put all their shields toward the front to fight the Soul's Pride. Their rear armor was much weaker. The destroyer's weapons punched through easily, destroying 4 ships in the first salvo. Admiral Vextar spun around as his rear guard exploded. "Where did that ship come from?" "It just appeared, sir. Our sensors didn't detect it until it started shooting." The humans had some kind of stealth technology that let them sneak up on enemy fleets. Or maybe they could travel faster than Veltraxian sensors could track. Either way, Vextar's perfect attack plan was falling apart. The 2 human ships worked together like they could read each other's minds. When the Soul's Pride fired at the left side of the alien formation, the Gangnam Thunder attacked the right side. When the Veltraxians tried to turn to face one ship, the other hit them from behind. "This is impossible," Vextar muttered. 2 ships cannot defeat an entire fleet. But that's exactly what was happening. Human weapons were more powerful than anything he'd seen before. Human shields were stronger than they should be, and human tactics were ruthless and precise. In 30 minutes of fighting, the Veltraxian fleet had lost 12 ships. The humans hadn't taken any serious damage. Their shields held strong, and their weapons never seemed to run out of power. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from some of the alien ships," Hana reported. Kyung-min's face was like stone. "Tell them surrender is not an option. They entered human space without permission. They ignored our warnings. The only choice now is to leave or die." "But sir, some of them want to give up." "Lieutenant, they crossed our boundary with weapons charged and hostile intent. They came here to conquer our colony and kill our people. Terra doctrine is clear. No prisoners, no survivors, no exceptions." Hana swallowed hard and sent the message. She was young and had never been in a real battle before. This was harsh, but she understood why. If word got out that humans took prisoners, other alien species might think they were soft. Better to be feared than pitied. The battle continued. More Veltraxian ships died under the combined fire of the 2 human vessels. Admiral Vextar watched his proud fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had underestimated. "Sir, we have to retreat," his tactical officer pleaded. "We're losing too many ships." Vexatar's pride burned. He was supposed to be conquering human space, not running away from it. But his officer was right. If they stayed, they would all die. "All ships, fall back to the boundary line," he ordered reluctantly. The surviving Veltraxian ships turned and ran. Behind them, the 2 human vessels followed, making sure they actually left human space. They didn't pursue the aliens into their own territory, but they made it clear the aliens were not welcome back. Captain Minji's voice came over the communication channel. "Commander Kyung-min, should we follow them home and finish the job?" "Negative. Captain, They're leaving our space. That's all that matters for now. Kyung-min paused. But log everything. Ship types, weapons, tactics. Command will want a full report. As the alien ships disappeared into the distance, Kyung-min allowed himself to relax slightly. The immediate threat was over, but he knew this was just the beginning. The Veltraxians wouldn't give up after one defeat. They would be back with more ships and better weapons. Hana, send a message to New Busan. Tell Governor Jiwon the immediate threat has passed, but they should continue the evacuation until we know what these aliens plan to do next. Yes, sir. Kyung-min looked at the space where the battle had taken place. Debris from destroyed alien ships floated in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Admiral Vextar was probably planning his revenge. The human commander knew this was far from over. On his flagship, Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display showing his losses. 12 ships destroyed, hundreds of his warriors dead. All because he had underestimated the humans. Contact the Emperor immediately, he ordered. Tell him we need the 3rd Imperial Fleet, all of it. Sir, that's over 200 ships. Surely we don't need that many to defeat 2 human vessels. Vextar turned to his officer with fury in his eyes. Those 2 ships just destroyed 12 of our best warships. Imagine what they could do with a whole fleet of their own. We're not just fighting 2 ships anymore. We're fighting the entire human species, and I intend to win. The news traveled fast through Veltraxian space. Admiral Vextar's defeat at human hands shocked everyone who heard it. The 3rd Imperial Fleet had never been beaten. They were the pride of the Veltraxian Empire, feared across 17 star systems. Emperor Zixoth sat on his throne and read the battle report 3 times. His hands shook with rage. 2 human ships had destroyed 12 of his best warships. Worse, they had made his admiral run away like a coward. This cannot stand, he declared to his court. If other species think humans can defeat us, they will lose respect for our power. We must crush these humans completely. His military advisors looked nervous. General Kexthor, the oldest and wisest, spoke carefully. Your Majesty, perhaps we should learn more about human weapons before we attack again. They seem more advanced than our intelligence report suggested. Nonsense, the Emperor roared. They got lucky. 2 ships against 37, and they barely won. When we send 200 ships, they will be destroyed utterly. But, sir, what if they have more ships waiting? What if this was a trap? Emperor Zixoth stood up from his throne. He was a massive creature, even for a Veltraxian, with razor-sharp claws and armor-like skin. Then we will destroy those ships too. Ready the 3rd Imperial Fleet. I will personally lead this attack. When I am finished, no one will ever dare to oppose the Veltraxian Empire again. 3 days later, Admiral Taeho arrived at New Busan with the main human fleet. Her flagship, the Incheon's Fury, was a massive battlecruiser that could probably fight 10 enemy ships at once. Behind her came 46 more vessels, everything from fast destroyers to heavy cruisers. Commander Kyung-min and Captain Minji met with Admiral Taeho in her conference room. Through the large windows, they could see the human fleet spreading out in defensive positions. Report, Taeho said simply. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but everyone knew she was the smartest military commander humanity had ever produced. Kyung-min explained the battle in detail, how the aliens had ignored their warnings, how human weapons had easily destroyed enemy ships, how the Veltraxians had retreated after losing 12 vessels. They'll be back, Taeho said when he finished. Species like that don't accept defeat easily. They'll bring everything they have. How many ships do we think they can bring? Captain Minji asked. Colonel Seung-ho, the fleet's intelligence officer, opened a data pad. Our spies say the 3rd Imperial Fleet has over 200 ships. Their biggest warships can carry thousands of troops. If they decide to invade in force, they'll bring everything. Admiral Taeho nodded grimly. What's the status of the civilian evacuation? Complete as of this morning, Kyung-min reported. Governor Jiwon got the last transport off planet 6 hours ago. New Busan is empty, except for automated systems. Good. That gives us options. Taeho pressed a button on the conference table, and a holographic display appeared showing the planet below them. If necessary, we can implement Protocol 7. Everyone in the room knew what Protocol 7 meant. If human forces couldn't hold a colony world, they would destroy it completely rather than let enemies use it. Scorched earth tactics. Better to rule over ashes than let aliens think they could take human territory. Ma'am, do you really think it will come to that? Captain Minji asked quietly. I hope not, Captain. But we need to be prepared for anything. Tejo looked at each officer in turn. Understand this clearly. Terra Doctrine is in effect. That means we fight to the death. No retreat, no surrender, no exceptions. What about reinforcements from Earth? Colonel Sung-ho asked. 3 days. Away at best. We're on our own until then. The Admiral stood up. Dismissed. Get your crews ready. If our intelligence is right, we won't have to wait long. She was correct. 2 days later, Lieutenant Hana's voice echoed through every ship in the human fleet. Contact. Multiple ships, emerging from hyperspace at grid reference 77 Alpha. Counting. My God, there are so many of them. On the bridge of the Soul's Pride, Commander Kyung-min looked at the tactical display. Red dots appeared one after another as the enemy fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 50 ships, 100, 150. The numbers kept climbing. Final count, 212 enemy vessels, Hana reported, her voice shaking slightly. Sir, that's more than 4 times our number. Kyung-min opened a channel to Admiral Tae-ho. Admiral, are you seeing this? I see it, Commander. All ships, assume attack formation Delta. This is what we trained for. The human fleet spread out in a complex pattern that looked random but was actually carefully planned. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had practiced these formations hundreds of times. On the massive Veltraxian flagship Dominion's edge, Emperor Zixoth looked at the human fleet with satisfaction. 47 ships against over 200. This will be a massacre. Admiral Vextar stood beside his emperor, still angry about his previous defeat. Your Majesty, we should be careful. These humans fight differently than other species. Different how? The emperor asked. They don't seem to value their own lives as much as other species do. They'll sacrifice themselves just to damage us, and their weapons are much more powerful than they should be. Emperor Zixoth laughed. Let them sacrifice themselves. The more they destroy their own ships, the fewer we have to kill. Begin the attack. The Veltraxian fleet moved forward like a giant wave of death. Their ships were huge and heavily armed. Against any other species, this would have been hopeless, but the humans weren't any other species. Admiral Tae-ho watched the enemy approach on her main screen. All ships, prepare to implement the Prometheus system on my command. Captain Minji's voice came over the communication channel. Ma'am, are you sure? We've never used Prometheus in actual combat before. I'm sure, Captain. Enemy fleet is too large for conventional tactics. We need every advantage we can get. The Prometheus system was humanity's most dangerous secret weapon. It allowed human ships to triple their power output by overloading their reactors. The ships became incredibly fast, and their weapons became devastatingly powerful. The downside was that any ship pushed beyond its limits would eventually explode. It was a weapon that guaranteed victory or death with no middle ground. All ships acknowledge Prometheus authorization, came reports from across the fleet. The first Veltraxian ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missile salvos screamed through space toward the human fleet. The aliens expected to see massive explosions as human ships died by the dozens. Instead, the human vessels scattered like leaves in the wind. They were suddenly 3 times faster than before, dodging between enemy shots with impossible grace. Their return fire was equally impressive. Weapons that had been powerful before were now absolutely devastating. Captain Dong Hyun of the cruiser Daegu's Revenge led his squadron in a flanking attack. His ship moved so fast it was almost a blur, dodging enemy fire while its enhanced weapons tore through alien hulls like paper. In 5 minutes, his squadron destroyed 8 enemy ships without taking any damage. This is impossible! Emperor Zixoth screamed on his bridge. How are they moving so fast? Sir, their power readings are off the charts, his tactical officer reported. They're generating 3 times more energy than they should be able to, Commander. Hyunji led a squadron of fast attack ships deep into the enemy formation. Her ships were small and normally would have been easy targets for the massive Veltraxian warships. But powered by the Prometheus system, they became untouchable ghosts that appeared, destroyed an enemy vessel, and vanished before return fire could reach them. The tide of battle was turning dramatically. Human ships that should have been outnumbered and outgunned were systematically destroying the enemy fleet. The Prometheus system had turned them into weapons of incredible power. But there was a price. Captain Yunji's ship, the Ulsan's Hammer, had been pushing its reactor to the limit for 20 minutes. Warning lights flashed across her bridge as systems began to overload. "Captain, we need to reduce power, or the reactor will explode," her chief engineer reported. Yunji looked at the tactical display. Her ship was surrounded by 12 enemy vessels. If she reduced power now, they would destroy her easily. But if she kept pushing, her ship would explode in minutes. "How long do we have?" she asked. 3 minutes at most. Yunji made her decision. "All hands. This is the captain. Abandon ship immediately. Get to the escape pods." "Ma'am, you need to—" "Come with us," her first officer pleaded. "Negative. Someone needs to keep firing until the reactor goes. I'll buy you time to escape." She locked her command console to prevent anyone else from taking control. "Tell Admiral Taeho that the Ulsan's Hammer completed her mission." The escape pods launched just as the ship's reactor reached critical mass. Captain Yunji kept firing until the very last second, destroying 3 more enemy ships. Then the Ulsan's Hammer exploded in a ball of nuclear fire that took 12 Veltraxian vessels with it. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships pushed beyond their limits, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to ensure victory. Each explosion took multiple enemy vessels with it. Admiral Taeho watched her fleet fighting and dying with pride and sorrow. They were winning, but the cost was terrible. "All ships begin final assault pattern. Make every shot count." The space around New Busan had become a graveyard of burning ships. Debris from destroyed Veltraxian vessels floated in every direction, while human ships continued their deadly dance between the enemy formations. The Prometheus system had turned Admiral Taeho's fleet into weapons of incredible destruction, but the cost was becoming clear. Emperor Zixoth watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was torn apart. Ship after ship exploded under human fire. The creatures he had dismissed as weak were fighting with a fury he had never seen before. "Status report!" he screamed at his tactical officer. "We've lost 87 ships, Your Majesty. The humans have only lost 18. At this rate, our entire fleet will be destroyed within the hour." The Emperor's claws dug into his command chair. This was impossible. His intelligence reports had said humans were a minor species with basic weapons. These were not basic weapons. These were instruments of pure destruction. On the bridge of the Inchen's Fury, Admiral Taeho coordinated the battle with calm precision. Her fleet was winning, but she knew the victory was coming at a terrible price. Each human ship that exploded took experienced crew members with it, people she had trained personally, friends she had known for years. "Admiral, the Gwangju's Pride is reporting critical reactor overload," came a voice from her communications officer. Taeho closed her eyes for a moment. Captain Wan Jin commanded that ship. He had a wife and 2 children back on Earth. "Put me through to him." "Admiral, this is Wan Jin," came the familiar voice over the speakers. "My ship is about to go critical. We've got maybe 2 minutes left. Can your crew evacuate?" "Negative, ma'am. We're surrounded by 15 enemy ships. If we launch escape pods, they'll be destroyed immediately. But I can position us to take out their command vessel when we go." Admiral Taeho felt a pain in her chest. She was sending good people to die, and they were going willingly. "Captain Wan Jin, you have permission to execute the Prometheus Gambit." "Thank you, Admiral. Tell my family I died fighting to protect them. Gwangju's Pride out." The Prometheus Gambit was the most desperate tactic in human military doctrine. A ship with a critical reactor deliberately flew into the middle of enemy formations and exploded, taking as many hostile vessels as possible with it. It required incredible courage and perfect timing. Captain Wan Jin aimed his dying ship directly at Emperor Zixoth's flagship. The massive Veltraxian vessel was 3 times larger than his cruiser, but that just meant the explosion would do more damage. "All hands, this is the captain," Wan Jin announced to his crew. "It has been an honor serving with you. Remember that we die so that human space remains free. Long live humanity." The Guangzhou's pride accelerated toward the enemy flagship at maximum speed. Veltraxian weapons fire tore at its hull, but the ship kept coming. Nothing could stop a vessel whose crew had already accepted death. The explosion when the reactor went critical was visible from every ship in both fleets. The nuclear fire engulfed the Guangzhou's pride, the Emperor's flagship, and 6 other Veltraxian vessels. When the light faded, all 7 ships were gone, but Emperor Zixoth had survived. At the last second, he had transferred his command to another ship. He was injured and furious, but alive. "Kill them all!" he screamed at his remaining fleet. "I want every human ship destroyed! Show them the price of defying the Veltraxian Empire!" The battle reached a new level of intensity. Both sides fought with desperate fury. Human ships continued to overload their reactors and ram enemy vessels. Veltraxian ships fired everything they had, trying to overwhelm human defenses through sheer firepower. Commander Kyung Min's soul's pride had been fighting for over an hour. His ship's hull was scarred and several systems were damaged, but they kept firing. Lieutenant Hana worked frantically at her station, coordinating with other human ships. "Sir, we're getting reports from all across the fleet. The Prometheus system is taking a toll on everyone. Half our ships are showing critical reactor stress." Kyung-min nodded grimly. "How much longer can we maintain this power level?" "Maybe 30 minutes before we start losing ships to reactor overload. Then we finish this in 30 minutes. Kyung-min opened a channel to Admiral Taeho. "Admiral, recommend we execute final assault pattern immediately. We can't maintain Prometheus much longer." "Agreed, Commander. All ships, this is Admiral." "Taeho, execute final assault pattern on my mark. Remember, we end this now or we all die trying." The remaining human ships formed up in a tight formation and charged directly at the center of the Veltraxian fleet. It was a desperate gambit. Either they would punch through the enemy lines and destroy enough ships to win the battle, or they would all die in the attempt. Captain Minji's Gangnam Thunder led the charge. Her ship had been fighting non-stop and was showing severe damage, but her weapons were still operational. Behind her came the surviving human vessels, their reactors, pushed to the absolute limit. The Veltraxian fleet tried to stop the human charge with concentrated fire. Energy beams and missiles filled space like a deadly storm. 3 human ships exploded under the intense bombardment, but the others kept coming. Emperor Zixoth watched the human attack with growing fear. These creatures were insane. They were flying directly into the heaviest weapons fire he could produce, and they weren't stopping. "Your Majesty, we should retreat," advised Admiral Vextar. "We've already lost too many ships." "Never," the Emperor roared. "We do not run from inferior species." But even as he said it, Zixoth knew the battle was lost. His mighty Third Imperial Fleet was being destroyed by a force less than 1/4 its size. When word of this defeat spread through the galaxy, the Veltraxian Empire would become a laughingstock. The human charge reached the center of the alien formation. Captain Minji's destroyer opened fire at point-blank range, her enhanced weapons tearing through enemy ships like they were made of cardboard. Around her, other human vessels did the same, creating a circle of destruction in the heart of the Veltraxian fleet. The news of the Battle of New Busan spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every spacefaring civilization had heard the impossible story. The mighty Veltraxian Third Imperial Fleet, destroyer of 17 star systems, had been completely annihilated by a human force 1/4 its size. On Earth, Admiral Taeho stood before the Human Defense Council in a room filled with the most important military leaders in human space. She was tired, and her uniform was still stained from the battle, but her voice was strong as she gave her report. "The Veltraxian invasion force has been completely destroyed," she announced. "Of their original 212 ships, none escaped our space intact. However, our victory came at a significant cost. We lost 35 ships and over 8,000 crew members." The room was silent as the council absorbed the magnitude of both the victory and the sacrifice. General Inwoo, the head of Earth Defense, finally spoke. "Admiral, your forces were outnumbered nearly 5-1. How was such a victory possible?" "The Prometheus system performed beyond our expectations," Taeho replied. "Our ships were able to generate triple power output, making them far superior to enemy vessels. However, the system's cost in terms of crew lives and ship destruction was also higher than anticipated. Was it worth it?" asked Minister Su-yung, the civilian head of the Defense Council. Admiral Tae-ho looked directly at the minister. Ma'am, we established the principle that human space is absolutely inviolate. No alien species will ever again consider invading our territory without remembering what happened to the Veltraxians. Yes, it was worth it. 3 days later, the surviving Veltraxian leadership sent an urgent message to Earth. Emperor Zixoth, badly injured in the battle, had been replaced by his younger brother, Emperor Vexoth. The new ruler wanted to make peace immediately. The message was read aloud to the Human Defense Council by Admiral Tai-ho. To the leaders of humanity, the Veltraxian Empire deeply regrets the unfortunate incident at New Busan. We wish to establish peaceful relations and negotiate a treaty of mutual respect. We formally request an audience with your representatives. Unfortunate incident? General Inwoo laughed bitterly. They invaded our space with over 200 warships, and they call it an unfortunate incident? What do you recommend, Admiral? Minister Su-yung asked. We negotiate, Tae-ho said simply, but from a position of absolute strength. They come to us. They accept our terms, and they pay reparations for every ship we lost and every life they cost us. 2 weeks later, Emperor Vexoth himself arrived at Earth aboard a small diplomatic vessel. The once proud Veltraxian Empire was now reduced to begging for peace from the species they had tried to conquer. The peace talks were held in Geneva, in the same building where humanity had signed its first interstellar treaties centuries before. Emperor Vexoth, a smaller and more careful creature than his deceased brother, sat across from Admiral Tae-ho and the human negotiating team. We are prepared to offer a non-aggression pact, the Emperor began nervously. Our species will never again enter human space without explicit permission. Not good enough, Admiral Tae-ho replied calmly. You will establish a buffer zone of neutral space between our territories, 50 light-years deep. No Veltraxian ship will be permitted within that zone for any reason. The Emperor's translator whispered in his ear for a moment. 50 light-years? That would cut off 3 of our trade routes. Then find new trade routes. You started this war. These are the consequences. What about reparations? Asked General Inwoo. Tae-ho slid a data tablet across the table. Full compensation for all ships lost, plus death benefits for every crew member killed, plus the cost of rebuilding our fleet. Total amount, 800 billion standard credits. Emperor Vexoth looked at the number and his skin turned pale. That would bankrupt our empire. You should have thought of that before you invaded our space, Tae-ho said without sympathy. You can pay over 50 years if necessary, but you will pay every credit. The Emperor had no choice but to agree. The Veltraxian Empire signed the Treaty of Geneva 3 days later, accepting all human demands. Word of the humiliating peace agreement spread throughout the galaxy even faster than news of the battle had. Other alien species took notice immediately. The Zephyrian Collective, a group of aggressive traders who had been planning to expand into human territory, quietly abandoned those plans. Their military council met in emergency session and decided that humans were far too dangerous to provoke. The crystalline hegemony, a species known for constantly fighting border wars with their neighbors, sent a formal message to Earth declaring their respect for human boundaries and their desire for peaceful trade relations. Even the powerful Andromedans, who had never acknowledged any species as their equal, sent diplomatic gifts to Earth along with assurances that they had no territorial ambitions in human space. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Kyung-min was posthumously promoted to Admiral and awarded the highest medal humanity could give. His sacrifice, along with that of Captain Wan Jin and the thousands of other crew members who died, was commemorated in a massive memorial on Earth. Admiral Tae-ho, now the most famous military commander in human history, was given command of the new Terra Defense Fleet. Her first assignment was to oversee the construction of the most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled. The lesson of New Busan was clear. Deterrence through overwhelming force was the key to galactic peace. If potential enemies knew that attacking human space meant certain destruction, they would never try. Captain Minji, one of the few ship commanders to survive the battle, was given command of the new flagship Seoul's Victory. The ship was built, with improved versions of the Prometheus system and weapons even more powerful than those used in the battle. She stood on the bridge of her new vessel, looking out at the space where the great battle had been fought. The debris had been cleared away, but she would never forget the sight of so many brave ships dying to protect human space. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Dae-hyun, approached with the daily report. "Captain, we have a small merchant vessel requesting permission to enter human space. It's coming from the Centauri trade routes." "Species?" Minji asked. "Altarian traders. They're broadcasting all the proper diplomatic codes and requesting formal clearance." Minji smiled slightly. 6 months ago, most alien species barely acknowledged human existence. Now they all carefully followed proper protocols when approaching human space. "Grant them clearance. Direct them to Terra Nova Station for customs inspection." "Yes, ma'am." As the alien merchant ship passed peacefully through human space, Minji reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The Battle of New Busan had established a new order based on a simple principle: respect for boundaries and the consequences of violating them. On the distant world of Zephyr Prime, military planners studied recordings of the battle for the 100th time. General Klaxor, head of Zephyrian military intelligence, shook his head in amazement. "I still don't understand how they did it," he told his staff. "Their ships were smaller and fewer in number, but they fought with a coordination we've never seen before." "It's their willingness to sacrifice themselves," replied Colonel Thexar. "No other species fights with such disregard for their own survival. They would rather die than retreat. Then we make sure never to give them a reason to fight us," the bull general decided. "Send a message to our border fleets. Any human ship approaching our territory is to be treated with absolute respect. No hostile actions, no threatening maneuvers, nothing that could be interpreted as aggressive." Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. The human victory had created a new reality. Humanity was no longer seen as a minor species to be ignored or bullied. They were now recognized as the most dangerous military force in known space. Admiral Tae-ho stood in her office on Earth, looking at reports from human colonies throughout the galaxy. For the first time in decades, there were no border incidents. No alien raids on human settlements. No territorial disputes. Her aide, Colonel Bong-sok, entered with the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, our sources say that several alien species are actually expanding their territories away from us rather than toward us." "Good," Tae-ho replied. "Fear is a more reliable foundation for peace than friendship. Some of our diplomats think we might be too harsh. They say we should try to build better relationships with other species." Admiral Tae-ho turned to face her aide. "Colonel, do you know why there hasn't been a single hostile act against human space in the past 6 months? Because other species are afraid of us?" "Exactly. They remember what happened to the Veltraxians. They know that entering human space uninvited means you're not coming back." She gestured toward the window, which showed the peaceful Earth sky. "That fear keeps our people safe. That fear keeps the peace." A year after the battle, humanity unveiled its new defensive doctrine to the galaxy. The Terra Doctrine was now official policy. Any unauthorized incursion into human space would be met with complete destruction of the invading force. No warnings would be given beyond the standard boundary alerts. No prisoners would be taken. No survivors would be allowed to escape. The announcement caused panic among some alien species, but most simply accepted it as the new reality.